Hey, it's great to be with you today. My name is John Erwin. I am supremely qualified to talk about love, sex, and dating, but not in that order, if you're following my drift. What should come first?
Dating.
What should come next?
Love.
What should come next?
Sex.
Is there something in the middle there between dating? Oh, just checking there. I just see if you were awake this morning. I've been married for 35 years, almost 36. If you'd like to see my beautiful family, look at the next slide. So that is on my daughter's wedding day 7 years ago. That's Katie and her husband, my son John Daniel, my wife and I. And what happens is, after you go from dating, love, marriage, sex, then you have a stage called grandparents. In another presentation, I'll put my grandson up there, but not today because it gets old, because he's such a cute guy. But he's 19 months old, and how many of you have a little brother or sister still at home? Want to know what's the youngest sibling in your home? Anybody have someone under the age of 10 still at home? Under 5? All right, so you know you don't have anybody that small hanging around at your house, but let me tell you something. For those of you who read the Bible, just a side comment here about love, dating, marriage, sex. There's a reason why 58-year-olds do not have children, generally speaking, with their wives. Because when you're chasing a 19-month-old around at SeaWorld, look at this face. I'm all sunburned. I mean, this kid, and it's amazing what 19-month-olds think is edible. Just an idea here, but if you ever have to babysit a 19-month-old, everything on the ground is potential produce that goes into their mouth. Cigarette butts, used gum, disgusting stuff. So just when you're babysitting, just realize, take care of the 19-month-olds. That's the age of my grandson. And anyway, so that's a little bit about our relationship. I want to ask you a question this morning. Go back. I'll tell you when to go forward. Thank you for catching that on the screen. For those of you listening from China today, we're glad that you're listening in. Just a funny little thing, we host international students who live with us. And so before I ever met the girl who lived with us last year, her name was Coco. Do you know Coco? Yeah. So it's so funny because she goes, Mr. Erwin, I saw you on TV. I go, really? I'm on TV in China? Well, for a health class. I go, they're broadcasting a health class in China? Well, not exactly. I was taking this class. I go, well, like, did the whole nation see it? No, and I only saw half of it, but I recognize you. So that's our introduction. But most people take this online, but you get the live version today. I want to ask you, how many of you would like to be in a healthy relationship someday? You think you're probably going to get married, all right? Many of you. Anybody say, no, pretty much I'm out. I'm like going to be single the rest of my life. I'm never hoping to ever be married. See? Okay. So the bottom line is this. I think we all want to be in a healthy relationship. I hope you can be in a relationship like I have been for 36 years, almost married, dated for 6 years. I'll tell you that story. I met my wife who, back then, when we first met, she was 14. I was 16. She was a freshman. I was a junior in high school. So you can end up meeting the person you'll marry in high school. It's highly unlikely. We're like the 1 out of 73 that did. But I want to ask you, have you ever seen an unhealthy relationship? Like one that's just jacked up? All right? Now, some of you, without voting, although it won't be on camera, how many of you saw a jacked up relationship in your own home, maybe even between your own parents? You know, like that's not the greatest. Right? Some of you are kind of like trying to decide, is it jacked up if they're divorced and my dad's on his 4th wife? Might qualify as jacked up. I get that. Others of you are saying, maybe it's not jacked up, but definitely mom and dad do not communicate. How many of you have seen some of that happen? Okay. And then I'm sure there's never any strife in your home. How many of you ever have, you know, crazy relationships with your own siblings, like you sometimes do not get along? All right. So what we're going to talk about today, whether it applies to just a dating or a relationship in a romantic kind of way, I think these kinds of things actually play across all the spectrums in terms of friendships, relationships, family dynamics. So, if I could tell you These are the 4 most destructive things that could happen in a relationship. Would that be a topic that would interest you this morning? In other words, knowing what a healthy relationship looks like versus unhealthy relationship. I think that would be helpful. And that's where we're headed today. So look at your notes. We're going to look at a thing called 4 kinds of love. We've already identified that we want to be in a meaningful relationship, but there are some danger signs that you need to be aware of. Now, those of you watching, again, via video, we're on this page right here called 4 Kinds of Love. We're going to look at danger sign number 1. First danger sign is romantic infatuation versus true or biblical love. Danger sign number 1 is having romantic infatuation with someone, but not really understanding true or biblical love. Now, I realize that you come from a variety of religious backgrounds. Some of you are irreligious, unchurched. You go here for the education, but this isn't really your deal. However, the worldview that I'm going to come from today is a biblical worldview, and that is, what does God's Word say about healthy relationships, what's unhealthy, and what's not. Now, is there anything wrong with romance? Just as we're out of the gates here. Anything wrong with romance? No! Romance is good. In fact, in most relationships, you start with this romantic idea, right? Girls, in your mind, you have this idea of the ideal guy. Is that true? Would that be true? I know guys, in their minds, definitely have an idea of what the ideal girl is. And girls, you should have an idea of what the ideal guy is. So what are some of those fantasies in your mind? Like, I would hope someday I'm with so-and-so. You don't have to name names, but just what would be some of those characteristics you're looking for? All right? Anybody? Yeah.
A good sense of humor.
Oh, you'd like to have a guy with a good sense of humor. All right. Yeah.
A good personality.
A good personality. What else? Yeah.
A Christian.
A Christian. Very good. Yeah. Anything else?
I mean, they already listed a lot, but
If they're good looking. So let's just admit it, that most of you are initially attracted to someone else because, in the biblical King James Version, yes, verily, they are hot, right? You know? You're looking for someone that's probably pretty good looking. Now, here's the deal. Nature has just a horrible way of taking what was beautiful at one point and everything just goes to pot. Well, not smoking pot, but pot, all right? So my shoulders used to be way up here, and they just kind of slid down here. That's because of 36 years of really good cooking and a sedentary lifestyle sitting behind a desk. But, so if you only base your relationship on romantic or physical feelings, you're going to be disappointed. So look at your list here, and I've given you this idea of infatuation versus real love. I want you to speed read it, and we're going to look at some of the key differences between infatuation and real love. We're saying it's okay to start with infatuation, but you end up on the right side of this column eventually if you're in a healthy relationship. So look at that. There are some major differences in the two, and let's identify what they are. Anybody that just shouts out at you, this is a major difference between infatuation and real love. As you're looking at the two lists. What stands out at you as a major difference? You kind of mentioned one of them already. Anybody? What do you see the differences being? What's a big difference if you're comparing the two lists?
one ends faster.
Yeah, one kind of takes time, and I'm going to give you some things to circle in a moment. We won't show you all the answers here, but yeah, one goes very fast, all right? I remember in 8th grade, I think that's when I actually thought I was in love, you know, but it was all about, you know, this girl that I was afraid to talk to all school year, and then the school year's going to end, and, you know, I thought I was in love, but it was probably infatuation, you know. And it went quick, and it was there, and then it was over, and then school, we were done, and like we were together for like 3 days, and then school was out, so into that. All right? Some of you started much younger than 8th grade. For some of you, your first love was in 1st grade. Yeah. Get that little heartthrob going, and Valentine's Day was like, oh, I get her a card or not. Or most guys are, by the way, ladies, it's no big deal, but most guys do not recognize your existence until much later. You're generally about 2 years ahead of them. So now you're the sophomore, they're just going, they're checking it out. They're going, yeah, you know. Now some guys start earlier, but you know, generally girls are much more ready for a committed relationship. Guys are like, let's play Nintendo, you know, Xbox. Yes. Yeah, guys go, true that, you know. Where's the pizza? Provide the games. All right. So we have time. There's a major difference. We already identified it. What's the very first thing on your outline? What about what attracts them most? Let's go to number 1, put it up on the screen. The biggest difference is physical attraction versus the total personality. That's a major difference. So circle physical appearance on the outline versus total personality. Circle those 2 words in your notes there in those left and right hand column. That's a major difference. All right, we identified the second one. Skip down a few to one goes fast, the other one takes time. Oh, stay back right up there. There we go. It moves fast versus takes time. Real love takes time. I've been in love with my wife somewhere between 36 and 42 years. I don't know when it went from infatuation to love, but somewhere before we got engaged, I was in love with this girl. Now, the deal is, if you start young, and you fall in love young, if that's possible, man, you better get married sooner or later, because eventually, we're going to talk about the law of diminishing returns, you're going to end up in a very sexualized relationship if you're not very, very careful. And so even if you're a Christian, you say, I want to wait till marriage, I want to be a virgin, and I'm a big proponent of that. If you want to wait, you got to be careful about how physically you get involved early on in the relationship. And we'll talk about that in a second. Thirdly, another difference is one is idealistic, one is realistic. All right? Idealistic is that your hair is perfectly combed, your makeup is perfect, the guy sees you and goes, oh, I cannot wait to be with you, and you're never not attractive. Now, every girl in this room knows there are times you are not attractive. Right? Let's just name one. The very first moment of your breath in the morning, in bed, is not attractive. Ladies, you have zoo breath, all right? And so do the guys, all right? Not attractive. So there are times where clearly you look better than other times. Some of you look good all the time, at least in your mind, you think you are. I think that any time you have any facial blemish, which I know is the scourge of adolescence, like, oh gosh, do I have to go to school? I'm breaking out. Ugh. And girls are a little more about, you know, proactive or whatever they're going to do to, you know, cover that stuff up. Guys, you know, we would never admit that we're embarrassed by bad skin, but, you know, we do, but, you know, we get into it a little more. Think about it. A girl finds a zit on her face and goes, oh no! A guy finds a zit on his forehead and goes, yeah, incoming, and he gets ready in front of the mirror, right? I mean, it's just how you approach life. Girls, your hair is combed this morning. Look at these guys. They woke up, looked at their head, did this. Yep, I'm good. Oh, not pointing out anybody in particular. This guy actually combed his hair. You know, somewhere in the last 20 years, bedhead became fashionable, so it's all good. All right? We got another one. Next slide. Next slide. So, few people approve, or most people approve. Sometimes when you're in an unhealthy relationship that's very infatuated, other people are giving you clues like, this is not good for you. Like, this is not good. And then some people would say, hey, when it's the right person, you find this growing group of consensus that says, yeah, this is a good person for you to be with. All right? Look at another difference. Frequent quarrels versus ability to handle conflicts. Now, in 36 years of marriage, I got to tell you, my wife and I have had quarrels. Christians don't have fights, right? We just have quarrels or loud disagreements, all right? And so we've had a few of our share of that, but what we do believe that in real love, you want to solve that. It's not a win. We create a win-win situation, not just I win, you lose all the time. What's another difference? Taking versus giving. And by the way, all these are kind of in your notes there in those two columns. You can reflect on those, circle those, but those you can kind of see those differences. Oftentimes an idealized relationship or romantic relationship is all about me, take, whereas in a genuine, biblical, loving, godly relationship, it's all about giving. I can tell you that for a fact right now, that some of the best times in our relationship were when one of us had to serve the other because the other one was incapable of serving. For instance, when my wife gave birth to both our children, she had to have cesarean sections, and so that was painful, and she's not on her feet right away, and I had to serve her. And she loved the fact that I was kind of waiting on her hand and foot during that time. She was cool about it. She wasn't like arrogant about it. She wasn't like, chop, chop, bring me the grapes, give me some water, get to it, boy, snap, snap. She was not like that. She was, oh, you're so sweet, you're so kind. And of course, every guy's going, I want her to remember how much I'm sacrificing right now, because I'm going to ask her to play golf here in a few weeks, and I'm going to leave her and play golf. And now, I got to say, she would never expect that, but when I'm all sick and she has to care for me, I just soak it up. Oh, yes, I'm very faint. I need you, honey. Please don't leave. Oh, could you turn that? Thank goodness for the remote control today, right? It has saved so many marriages, because if you're sick in bed, you can't really get out and change the channel. Now I have the remote. It's all good. So, giving versus taking. All right, what's another one? Consuming versus caring. Oftentimes, if you are a consumer, you're selfish. That's another way to put it, versus kind of unselfish and reaching out. And then, anything else there? Okay. Let's go to danger sign number 2. Danger sign number 2. That's conditional versus unconditional love. Danger sign number 2 is when you have conditional versus unconditional love. Now let's just pause there for a moment so we understand the words. I'm going to give you 2 statements that describe conditional love, and I'll give you 1 statement that describes unconditional love, and then we'll illustrate it. All right? So first question, or first statement, is what? You tell me whether it's conditional or unconditional. I love you because. Let's see it on the screen. I love you because. Is that conditional or unconditional? It's conditional. It's conditional based on what? I love you because fill in the blank. Yeah, something they have to do for you. So let's just practice a few of those. I love you because what?
You treat me so well.
Because you treat me so well. All right, there's nothing bad about that, but when she quits treating you well, then I quit loving you. So remember, that second part will only be true. The first part will only be true. The second part continues to be true. I love you because you treat me well. What's something else? I love you because? Because you cook so good. All right? In a dating relationship, think about something in a dating relationship that might be really practical. I love you because you what? Huh?
Because you're beautiful.
Because you're beautiful. So if you quit being beautiful, then I quit loving you. All right? That's a scary proposition to be in, isn't it? Especially for girls. He loves me, quote unquote, as long as I look hot. That's not a great place to be. What happens if you get a bad case of chickenpox and you end up with pocked face, and do you quit loving someone? What happens if that person's injured in a disfiguring car accident and half their face is ripped off? I mean, that's disgusting, but it's reality. So think about conditional. There are reasons why you might love someone, but when those reasons change, that's the gut check where you say, I wonder if I really did love them. All right? This one's a little more insidious. The second one is, I love you if. I love you if. Now, it's a little more, So I love you if, give me a statement, I love you if.
You feed me.
If you feed me. This group is really into food, I can see. So we've got a bunch of foodies here in this room today.
We're all hungry.
And we're all hungry. You've been here since, what, 8 o'clock? 8:30? Oh, yeah. By the way, I don't think there's anything good about an 8:30 summer school class. I just think it's pure punishment. But it's better than taking this class online, because at least you have fun and humor, long breaks, lots of guest speakers. All right, so I love you if you feed me. Now think about how the hormonal thoughts of a man, what is he thinking about love is all about? I love you if what? If you sleep with me, if you make out with me, if I can get to third base, or whatever base is appropriate or inappropriate. So I love you if you make out with me, if we hook up. How about I love you if you do what I want you to do? I love you if you make me happy. I love you if you do my homework. Yeah. Does anybody help anybody with their homework? No. You're on your own. All right. All right. So you can see those are conditional statements. Again, not great for building a long-term relationship, but it seems to be what happens in relationships. Let's look at the third one. I love you in spite of. I love you in spite of. Okay, that's probably, that is conditional or unconditional? That's unconditional. And your homework assignment tonight, in 1 Corinthians 13, you're going to look at characteristics of what we call biblical love. And I'm calling them the ABCs of love. Now, you're going to hear about this in the lecture, and that will help you get your homework done. If you pay attention to the last part of this lecture, you're going to get half of this done by listening today. So just heads up on that. All right? So, conditional versus unconditional. This unconditional thing of love. I've seen this alive and well in my own family, in my own marriage. I see it in my daughter's marriage. I see that she's working and trying to care for a 19-month-old, and I see how my son-in-law loves his son and loves his wife, my daughter, and serves her sacrificially even when they're both tired. You know, I saw it with my parents who were married 55 plus years, as my mom cared for my dad who had Alzheimer's, and the last 4 years of his life barely recognized her and forgot that he had eaten the same exact thing for lunch for like 2.5 years. He wanted the same thing, thought it was new. Oh, let's have a chili relleno. Okay, honey. And every day for 2.5 years. And in fact, she ended up going to a Mexican restaurant called Don Jose's and asked, can I just order like plate loads of like trays full of these? And she frees them because every day he wanted to eat the exact same thing and thought it was new every day. That's unconditional love. I've seen it in church where I do a lot of counseling and I deal with people who are going through the grieving process of losing someone. And the harder time is when they lose someone to an accident and they don't die, but they're permanently disabled for the rest of their life. That's unconditional love. So when people ask you, when you're ready to really settle down and you've met the man or woman of your dreams, I want to ask you, somewhere in your pre-marriage counseling, you've got to have that gut check that says, can I see myself living through all the life stages of life together, and I'm going to be with them through thick and thin, for better, for worse, till death do us part. That's what a commitment to marriage is all about. Unfortunately, your generation has seen plenty of what we call serial marriages. It works for 5 years, dump this one, go for number 2. And maybe, unfortunately, even in your own homes, you've seen that with your parents, and you're on dad number 2 or 3, or mom number 2 or 3, and you have unbelievable tensions because of broken marriages. By the way, can God work through a broken marriage? Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're probably got stories that can tell us how that works. All right? So danger sign number 2. Number 3. Danger sign number 3 is an unhealthy dependence versus independence. Unhealthy dependence versus independence. And we're going to look at some characteristics of an unhealthy dependent relationship. And in a moment, we're going to turn off the film and the camera, and we're going to break into guys groups, like 2 girls groups and 2 guys groups. Unhealthy dependence versus independence, all right? And we're going to look at the differences between that. But just generally speaking, before I break into groups, what are some characteristics when you see an unhealthy dependent relationship? And on your notes there, you're going to see that I gave you room to write 10 things. You could write 30 things. I'll give you, quote, the right answers, but really your answers will be just as good as mine. So let's do a couple of them together before I break into groups. What's an example of an unhealthy dependent relationship? When you said seen it around campus here, what is it like? Any ideas? Somebody who has an unhealthy dependent relationship. Yeah.
The person always has to ask for permission.
Oh yeah, there is no freedom. It's like they are so attached at the hip, you've got to ask permission to do anything. And guys, there's a word for that. When she does that to you, it means you were whipped. Yeah, whipped. All right? Like, the guys go, hey, we're going out, we're going to go see X-Men and get some pizza. And they ask you, and you go, no, I've got to check in with Gladys. I'm not sure Gladys would like me to go out with the boys. Now, that's the classic. And girls, does that feel empowering? Like, wow, I have so much power with this guy. He's got to check in with me before he go out. No, that's kind of sick and twisted, all right? You should have a little more healthy relationship. So there's an example of an unhealthy dependent relationship. So here we're going to do, we're going to turn off the camera. And for those of you listening at home, you need to be making your list of unhealthy dependent relationships, what those characteristics look like, all right?